Hi, everyone, and welcome back to How Did You Learn to Do That podcast. Thank you so much for listening to this episode and coming all the way to week number 27. So, I'm so excited today to have Jaime from Contract Markets to share all the work that she does and how she decided to take her law degree and her practice and create something modern, something on her own, and how she committed to this dream of hers and making it happen. So I'm so excited for her to share her story in just a minute. But before I do, I would love if you could subscribe to us on YouTube. And if you like what we've been sharing, and if you like the stories that have been told, and if you feel inspired by them, it would mean the world to me if you could leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, as well as follow us on all other podcast platforms that we're on and like us on social media. And if you are inspired by something that someone you know is doing and you want to know how they're learning to do that, or you yourself have done something where you've committed to yourself, please fill out my nomination form. You can find that on our website, howdidyoulearntodothat.com, and I hope to have you onto the podcast. So stay tuned, and Jaime will be joining us just shortly. Hi, everyone. I'd like to welcome Jaime Bell to the podcast today. So Jaime is a lawyer and the founder of Contracts Market, a contract template store for Canadian entrepreneurs, coaches, and creatives. Early in her legal career, Jaime realized how unsuited she was as a typical legal career and terrified of spending the next 30 years of her life trapped in an office. She started binge listening to business podcasts, reading all the self-help books, and dreaming of a more creative and non-linear career path. She took time to explore different options, including getting her coaching certificate, until realizing that disconnect she was feeling in her career wasn't with being a lawyer per se, it was with the people she was serving. And after taking some time off and moving across the country, she started her own law firm, Wild Coast Law, where she works one-on-one with entrepreneurs and most recently launched Contracts Market. Jaime's mission with both of her businesses is to make the journey of entrepreneurship easier for business owners by simplifying the legal stuff. And when she's not building her two businesses, Jaime can be found running long distances through the mountains or trying to keep the vegetables alive in her garden. So thank you so much, Jaime, for joining me on the podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me.
I love that you said you're trying to keep your vegetables alive. I just killed a snake plant, and my husband's like, "Aren't those things like impossible to kill?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I don't know what happened."
I'm the same. My house plants are a different story for sure. I just bought a book called How Not to Kill Your House Plants, so I've already used it and cat-eared the pages.
Oh, nice. Okay, I need to get that book because I downloaded an app that, you take a picture of the plant and it will tell you exactly what plant it is, where in your house you need to have it, what you need to do, and then based on the look of it, it'll tell you if it's doing well or not too.
I feel like my house would fail that. fail the app.
Oh yeah, I failed terribly, but oh well. Just trying to, as long as it looks pretty. And my sister just gave up, and she just buys fake plants for her house, and I'm not there yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm so excited to have you on the podcast. Jaime and I also met on the Action Takers Club, which I've spoken about before. I've had a couple other people that we were in the same cohorts join me on the podcast before. So I'm so excited to connect with you. I'm so excited to hear about your story and your journey and everything that you do. So
thank you.
You can take it away. I would love to know how you got started. How did you decide to be a lawyer? And then how did you get into the world that you're in now?
Sure. So I've been practicing almost 10 years now with a break in between. So looking back, I feel like I've had a career that probably has enough jobs to fill a 30-year career by this point, but it's kind of the way I wanted it. So I don't think going to law school was ever something that as a child I was like, oh, I want to be a lawyer. But growing up in a small town and wanting some financial security because we didn't have a lot growing up was something that was important to me. And at the time, we didn't have all the options or available information at our fingertips like we do now. So it's like, oh, well, you can be an accountant or a teacher or a doctor, and 2 out of 3 of those were not in the cards for me because I'm terrible at math. And so being a lawyer kind of fell into one of the options that kind of ticked a few of the boxes. And I think this happens for a lot of people, that when you start getting onto a path, you become a little blinded by perhaps other things that come along, because you actually have to be so hyper focused on the end goal that you just, your vision becomes quite narrow. So I got pretty rolled into the hamster wheel of getting to be a lawyer, and that started pretty early on, and definitely like some thought along the way. Like I took my undergraduates in legal studies, so was setting myself up well, and had some really great friends and professors that definitely supported that, and I had a great time in undergrad. Got to law school and was not prepared at all for law school. I did really well in undergrad, and then I got to law school, and you throw a bunch of, top 3% of every other class at university into one class together, and it's a bunch of crazy type A's who have their focus and dream the same as yours. And I really realized at that point that I was like, wow, I actually don't think I want this that badly. But again, you're in it. And my mom was always a big driver of like, get an education for sure. Like law school is a great option, even if you don't want to be a lawyer. Having a law degree opens up so many doors, which is totally true. And so I think I always had that narrative in my head that even if I don't want to be a lawyer, and that did become my narrative, I'm here, but I don't want to be a lawyer, which is not setting yourself up for success, I'll say, is that it just, it opened a lot of doors for me.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. I mean, I love that you said that it definitely gets you on a narrow path. And I don't know if you've read Michelle Obama's book, but she's also a lawyer, and she says that she became like just a box checker. She had this plan that was like set for her, and she just needed to check the boxes. And she didn't really have time. Like, I think she got in and she was like on track to becoming a partner, or she became a partner, which I don't understand law that much, but like from what I understand, that's like a big deal. And so she's like, she got there and she realized that she didn't like it at all. And she moved out of that and did what she really loved.
Yeah. I think in the beginning, when I was really starting to look at law, and I think a lot of people do this, is we want to change the world. And so I'd studied a lot about international criminal law, and was really interested in like the international criminal tribunals for Rwanda, and justice and negotiation and mediation and all these creative things in human rights. So before I got to law school, I was really interested in all that, and went to Tanzania and sat in on some trials at the ICTR, which was really interesting.
Well, that's so cool.
It is, but it's very tough to make a go of that. And so when you get to law school, and I went to Western, which is a great law school, it's hyper business driven. Again, I was unprepared when I got there. I don't think I knew that. I just knew Western had a pretty campus, and I got in and they wanted me. So I was happy about that. But I got there and it was not really anything that, none of the classes were really there to support this idea of justice, or in the sense that I wanted to save the world. So I got really into this narrow business kind of track, which is the law school is known for, and kind of sideswiped me. And I wasn't really interested in it at the time. It was very corporate feeling. So, and that's just not my jam.
Yeah.
The law school is a bit of a struggle.
I feel like that's exactly when I was on track to doing med school, and like that was like, what my dad had told everybody, that I was a doctor before I even finished high school. And I was like, Dad, stop it. Like, you don't know, like that's so much pressure. I'm like, I don't know if I want to be a doctor. I don't know if that's what I want to do. And he had picked out that I was going to be even a pediatrician. And I was like, I don't even know if I want to do that. Like but because, you have that in your head, and like you're saying, like you kind of have that path, and you're like, hey, these are the one of the 3 things I can do. And that's exactly what I did. And I went to university, and I remember I took a 3rd-year class on the social determinants of health, like how health is beyond the doctor-patient interaction, and how it's beyond the hospitals and the doctor office settings. And it's like your job and your education and like your social safety net and your support network. And it's just everything in your environment where you live, like everything affects your health. And when I took that, I was like, that's what I want to do. right? And I was
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
that's what I want to do, right? And I was just like, I remember having a really difficult discussion with my dad. And like, Dad, I don't want to be a lawyer. I want to go into public health. And he
Yeah.
was like, public what? It's like public health, and I feel like, up until COVID-19 happened, I don't think anybody understood what I did. They just kept asking me like, are you a nurse? Like, so what do you do? And now I feel like a rock star. So I'm like, I work for
Oh,
public health, and everybody's like, oh,
you're
okay.
the
Like,
hero of 2020 and beyond.
now they know. But I think I had the same experience as you, in the sense that I was in a medical fraternity of all pre-med students, and we were all trying to go for the same thing. And like you said, type A, and everybody was working so hard. And similar to you, when you said that, like, you were like, okay, I really don't want it that bad. I feel like that's exactly what I felt like,
Yeah.
just being around that environment. I was like, well, these people love this. They
Yeah.
just, this is their life. This is their dream. This is their passion. This is what they really want. And I didn't feel like that. So I was like, I don't feel like this. So I don't think I want it that
Yeah.
bad.
And that's what happened with me. I mean, even you think that when you get to law school, you've checked the last box. Oh no, there's now 10 new boxes you have to check, which is you have to get the killer first year associate's job. You have to then be asked back at the firm. And then you have to then be asked on full time after and get your articling position, and then the partner
Wow.
track down the road. Like, there's this whole new checklist that appears, and I was not not ready for it at all. And there was never a moment in law school where something clicked and I was like, oh, this makes sense. It was always like pushing water up a hill, kind of
Yeah.
impossible for me. And I did okay at law school.
Yeah.
But I think getting back to that narrative, I did not set myself up for success, in the sense that I felt really comfortable being there. And in my head, I was always like, I don't even really want to be a lawyer. I just want to
Yeah.
have this to do something else. And so when you think that way, what you think becomes your reality. So, yeah.
Yeah. How, I know that was your goal, that you wanted to finish the law school, you wanted to get through it, but even though you didn't want to be a lawyer and you wanted something else, how did you keep yourself, I know, because law school is not easy.
Mhm.
How did you keep yourself aligned with that notion or that idea or that goal, and keep yourself when you had those difficult moments of, why am I doing this, what am I doing here, or this is too hard, or all those experiences that you have when you going through a professional program? How did you keep yourself in check, and how did you align yourself with your goals, and maintain that mindset?
I think it just goes back to, you're on the hamster wheel. Like, the idea of not finishing law school never crossed my mind. Like, when I set my mind to something, I do it. And way back when, I had decided I was going to become a lawyer, so it was never a question of finishing. And the good thing is that you're actually surrounded by all these people who have exactly the same work ethic and all of that. So you just get lumped in, and all my friends and I,
Go
it
for
was like, okay, we do class, and then we go to the library, and then we go party, and you just keep doing it, and you support each other through the hard times. Like, I
Yeah.
have great girlfriends that I made in law school, and if it wasn't for them and their support and like hard, being in the shit together, then I don't think I would have made it. But it was also never
Yeah.
an option not to do it, because I certainly had never even considered anything else. Like, there was never a thought that, I just had never had
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, that's a really good point, is that community, and that just immersing yourself in that experience, and just getting yourself to that goal, really helped to allow you to actually go through it and make that goal and achieve being a lawyer for yourself. And so when you got out of law school, what was your like, when you got out, what were you thinking, like, in terms of your next step? And were you feeling were you still feeling like you didn't want to be a lawyer once you got out? Or did you
Uh,
feel like you wanted to go down the traditional path and get, kind of almost sucked into that? Because I know how easy that could be too.
yeah, it definitely could. I mean, you walk out of law school, and it's very easy to get a six figure. Not easy, you still have to work, but the jobs that are offered to you are six figures. And so, for the most part, so you could easily get tied into, the salary and the benefits and kind of that weird world of corporate law for me. And so I actually did play like normal corporate lawyer for, I guess, almost 7 years
Wow.
So I worked at a couple really great law firms, and then I left, and went and worked in-house with a big corporate property company, one of the biggest in Canada, knowing, like, I knew the moment that I walked through the door, it was not the place for me. And
Yeah.
I've never been so bored working somewhere in my life. And it came through for sure in my work ethic and wanting to bang my head against my office wall all day long. And I was actually fired from that job. And I mean, good on them because I was not showing up as the person, an abled lawyer at that point. I was just,
Yeah.
going through the movements. And so I was let go from that job. And right around that time was when I was really at the point, like, I'd actually taken the in-house job knowing it would be more flexible in terms of, like,
Yeah.
very 9 to 5 hours, and kind of give me the space to start thinking about the next thing. Because when I took that job, I definitely knew, like, this is a stepping stone to something else. And I don't know what that is yet, but working
Yeah.
in-house allowed me to talk to other people in, like, different departments and not being so in the guts of, like, corporate real estate, which was what I was doing
Hmm.
before, and financing and stuff that, like, I look back, I'm like, I don't know how I did that. But um yeah, so I got let go from that job, and right around that time I met my partner, who I'm still with now, and he is like the opposite of me. He in terms of lifestyle at the time, like, he is an outdoor guide, and lived in a van at the time that I met him, and we actually met on a kayaking trip, and he was my guide. And just around the time that I was just pre getting let go from my job, about probably 7 months, so we were talking a little bit, and we ended up kind of dating across the country. And then we started talking, like, lifestyle is just so important. And he's like, I don't know how you are doing this. And I'm like, me either. And I don't know what's next, but certainly the way that you're living is much more attractive than the way I'm living. And when I see myself in 30 years from now, like, do I want to be sitting in this office, and do I want to be sitting downtown Toronto in a city where, yes, I grew up near, I'm not from Toronto, but I grew up north of the city in the country. And no, I don't see myself living in a city and having this crazy buzz around me all the time, and working for clients who don't care who you are. They just want the
Yeah.
deal done, and no connection to the work. So after I got let go from the property company, I leased my apartment to another law student for the summer, and I took off and house sat across BC for 9 months. And it was
Wow.
just like this. I didn't have a job. I didn't know where I was going. Might as well disclose it now. My partner's name is also Jamie. So super awkward. Name all your children very gender specific names to avoid this. And I guess that's my advice. And yeah, so he actually was going to work in Antarctica, or no, Arctic, somewhere. He was going far away for the summer. So I actually moved to BC without him really being there, and found all these random house sits kind of across the province, and just to give myself, like, a place to be from time to time to explore a province I was thinking about living in, and then also just to kind of start sorting through in my brain, like, what the future was going to look like. So that was like I was very privileged to be able to do that, because I had been thinking about it for a while, and I was in a position financially where I could do that. So yeah, that was pivotal for me. And
Yeah.
definitely it's when I started trying things out to see what my life was going to look like.
Yeah. Wow. That's incredible. I mean, that's courageous just to be like, and I love that you said that, good on them for firing you, because I feel like I would, when you're in that kind of situation, I'd want to be fired too, because like, I don't have the courage to say no or to quit. I want to be forced into something else, and it actually reminds me of my husband, because he was let go in March from COVID. And but he is like, I don't know if I could ever go back to that industry. Like, now he's had enough time to really reflect, similar to what you're saying.
Hmm.
and start thinking about the passions that he's had that he kind of like put in the back burner because he just got swept up with, in the jobs and in the industry and all that kind of stuff. So now he's really exploring these passions for himself and what's next for him. And I feel like he's going through that same journey that you went through. And but I think that's awesome that you moved to BC to house it with, just kind of with space and allowing yourself that space to connect with yourself and what you really truly want.
Yeah. I think when you're trying, for me personally, and what I've learned is you really just need to, as much as you can, create the space. And if you're contemplating big decisions like this, and I know I was very privileged and lucky to be able to take that time off, but for anybody who's trying to make a big decision like that, that space might actually just be waking up a little earlier in the morning to journal, or that was a big thing that I forced myself to do on that time off, just because getting all your thoughts down. And I don't know if you've ever read The Artist's Way, but the journaling it's really good. And so the morning page, doing the morning pages, and that was all really helpful. And just trying things. Like I mentioned, I got my coaching certificate during that time because I was really like, I'm leaving law. Like I want to do like health coaching or something, or life coaching, or I don't know what I wanted, but I thought coaching was like another good option. That it was really about, I love connecting with people. And so when I took the course, it was, maybe I'll be a coach and I'll try that, like a career coach. I thought I was in a great position to be a career coach. And then but I just learned so much about like how humans tackle problem solving and decision making and interact with each other, and building rapport. And so from that coaching certificate, I learned a lot about that. And then I actually built out a full career coaching program and put in this like time off I did, and took on some beta clients, and realized really quickly that I did not want to be doing coaching. I liked connecting with people, but and thank goodness, like, you just have to try something. And so when people start talking about making a career change, it's like, well, what is, it's a big step. So if you have an interest in something, like if you're, in public health, but you want to be a copywriter, like maybe don't quit your job right away unless you have the luxury of doing that. But why don't you just enroll in, someone you admire if they have a course, and just invest a little bit of money. It doesn't have to be $1 million or like really expensive courses, or don't take the $10,000 coaching program right away. Try something like a free course on Teachable, or from somebody that you follow on Instagram, and like test the waters first. Because I'm really happy I didn't do the $10,000 coaching course, which I was looking at. And I spent $1,000 on it, and then realized it was enough to realize I was like, maybe one day, but not now.
Yeah.
So testing things out is, trial by error.
Yeah. I can definitely attest to that. I'm still working full time at my day job, and I knew that building this brand and sharing stories and having this podcast and coaching students to make that transition from the professional world, from being a student into the professional world. I knew I loved it, but like you said, like I just want to test it before I, quit my job, and then I'm doing it, and then all of a sudden I realize that this is not for me anyway. So I love that. And I how did you actually come up with contract market? Because I think it's so interesting. And I remember I also consult, and I started that about 4 years ago. And I remember at that time I was like, where do I get like a document from a lawyer that like I can send to people, and a template? And I remember at that time I was looking everywhere and I couldn't figure it out. And I didn't want to go to a law firm and pay a ton of money, so I just wanted a simple template. And then I remember at that time I was working for a lawyer just before I started the consulting, and then she actually helped me just create it. And at that time I was like, what do people do when you don't have a lawyer you work with that could do this for you? And so when I saw your business and what you do and what you offer, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so exciting.
Yeah. So after I took the time off from bopping around BC, being a coach and morning journaler and dog walker, which I have to give a plug to Trusted House Sitters. If you need need something like that, that's what I use, and it was amazing. I highly recommend that website. Maybe not right now during COVID, but that's what I use to get around BC. And so, so I started realizing I built this like coaching program, and then I was like, oh, I don't actually I don't want to coach, but I love the connection of like business coaching. I binge business podcasts, and I've been doing that since I left law school, like since podcasts were kind of becoming a thing. I always had them on the streetcar going to work. I loved hearing about people's, I just, as many podcasts as I could consume about building a business, which was hilarious because I had no business to build. It was just, I got really inspired by the entrepreneurial journey, and I liked the idea of marketing. I mean, now that I understand how much work marketing is, I'm like less thrilled about it, but I just loved the idea of building that connection and having something that's really reflective of your brand and all those things. Anyway, so after that little sabbatical that I took, I got a job as a lawyer with a smaller business-based law firm in North Vancouver, and where I worked with a ton of startups, other like smaller companies versus the huge real estate companies that I've been working for before. And I worked with them for just about a year on the North Shore of Vancouver. Okay. And I actually realized how much I loved working with small businesses and kind of being part of the team and in the day-to-day guts of their business, dealing with contractor issues, or they wanted a pop-up market, and so they wanted a lease done for that, and then or a hairdresser. I was working with businesses that I really loved, and that I was actually speaking and dealing with the owners and the hearts behind those businesses. And that's when I realized that how much I wanted to work with small business owners. And so from there, it was like, well, I started my own law firm. I worked with a partner. Well, she had started her own law firm in Toronto. So I had my own law firm, but I worked under her branding. And then earlier this year, I went out on my own, and it just made more sense because I was only dealing with people in BC. Yeah. So when I had been thinking about this idea for a while, it's something that's quite common in the US. There's contract shops, but there hadn't been anything in Canada yet that I could find. And so after working with so many entrepreneurs, and taking my bigger business background, working with bigger companies, and then taking my experience working with smaller companies, like, this totally makes sense. And now I can use all the tips that I've learned from my business podcast and build something that's really serves entrepreneurs. And to be honest, like, as a sole practitioner with my own law firm, like, I just can't help as many people as I want, and I can't scale my own business to create the life that I want to be living, which is, trying to keep my vegetables alive in between client calls. So yeah, and to be honest, it really comes down to entrepreneurs who have a copywriting business, or just starting out with their photography business, or running are graphic designers. You don't, like, in 90% of cases, I just don't think you need a individualized legal, like, lawyer drafted personal agreement. Yeah. I really think that a great template is, mine are certainly pretty much what I would provide you as your individual lawyer. And so I've just taken all of that and put it into templates that can be customized and used and available exactly when you need them. So if you book a client on Friday and you need to get them a contract Monday, there's no way a lawyer would get that done for you over the weekend, but that's the pace that entrepreneurs are going right now. So if there's an option that's, tailored for Canadian entrepreneurs specifically, then I wanted to make that available to them.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think I definitely love what you're doing, and I love what you're offering, and I think it just makes it so much easier. And I actually really love the bundles that you offer, because, when I was going through your content, I was like, do I need this? Do I need this? Do I need this? Do I need this? And the fact that I can just go to the bundles and be like, hey, if I want to do this, these are the things that I need. to get started, and then I can add to it as I need to. And I think that it just makes it so much easier, and it does really save you a bit. And actually, when I went onto your site and I saw that there's a contract for podcasting, I was like, I didn't even know that was a thing. Like, and then
Yeah.
when I read through the what you've said there, and I was like, oh my gosh, I never considered that. And I, in my personal opinion, I feel like no one considers these things until they need to consider it.
Yeah, I mean, the podcast one is an interesting one because, I mean, most people are like, do I really need one? I'm like, well, if at some point you have somebody ask if they can change your content, not in the editing section, but then they're using it and repurposing it and they're making money off it, and you're dealing with ads and all that, people want a speaking fee. All these kind of issues come up. So sometimes for entrepreneurs, what I've learned is I'll often get their contracts and they're actually okay contracts, but they're missing key things because you guys didn't go to law school and you don't know what should be in there, or you don't know what's missing. So these ones are pretty thorough.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's awesome. And so with both having your own law firm and the contracts market, how do you make sure that what you're doing is still aligned with your what you set forth to do initially, and why you decided to not be a traditional lawyer anymore and to create this for yourself? And I know with your journaling, and I just want to go back to the journaling quickly, so I didn't touch on that. I didn't touch on that yet, but I think it's incredible that you were journaling at that time. And I personally think that it's great to have a record, just even going back to that. And I don't know if you've gone back to those journals yet, but you're probably thinking along the lines of like, reading through the journals and realizing where you were at that place and where you're at now, and how you've now created something you were just thinking about at that time. And that's what I love about journaling, to be honest. And I think journaling every day just lets you really work through your thoughts and your process. But with that, I'm sure you came up with, this is kind of like my why statement, or this is why I want to do this, or this is where I want to go, and for this reason. How do you make sure that you're staying aligned with that? Do you check back in with yourself, or do you carve out time regularly to check back in with yourself?
Yeah, so it's really interesting about the journaling piece because with the Artist Way, she actually tells you not to go back and read them until a sufficient amount of time has passed, because it's supposed to be like a very non-judge, like we're our own worst critics. So if you come up to a block in a sentence, just write like blah, 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 so that you keep the pen moving. And she's a big advocate of just like keep the pen moving. But yeah, I actually haven't gone back and read them, but I would love to, because just the way my brain was working at that point, it would be fascinating to see. And also like all the iterations of like the loop-de-loos along the way and how it all came to be. Because I had probably 100 different crazy ideas. And actually my first name for the contracts market was going to be Not Your Daddy's Lawyer.
You should have gone with that.
I know. Because I really wanted to make sure that it wasn't, I should trademark that, but I really wanted to make sure that it wasn't reflective of like the old crusty, stuffy Shakespearean, old white dude in the mahogany desk kind of feel to coming for legal services, which I think is really intimidating and totally out of date with how the world is, and unfortunately we lost so behind. But yeah, so it would be really, I'm on a tangent, but it would be really interesting to go back and maybe I'll do that. But in terms of checking in to make sure I'm on the right path, I think it's like a daily thing, because, I'd like to say it's a daily thing. It should be a daily thing, but my baseline was so low in terms of I was so bored working in corporate law and I was so burnt out, and I just wanted to bang my head against my office wall all day long. Like, I'm not there, so that's great. And actually now I've kind of gone the opposite, where I really love what I'm doing so much that I'm working more than I expected I wanted to. So that for me is a good check-in that I'm actually where I'm supposed to be doing the things I'm supposed to be doing. And now it's managing the time and managing how to not burn out on the other end of the scale, which we just took 30 days off. I know I launched 2 businesses, then we took 30 days off to go kayaking around Vancouver Island, portion of it. And that was a lot of anxiety ridden with that. But that's the kind of freedom that I've been wanting to build so that I can enjoy my life and not wait till I'm retired to go on a paddling
Yeah.
trip or go hiking with my girlfriends or do some other things. So those are all checks along the way that, I can say, Friday I'm going to go take my bike and go bike around an island close by with my girlfriend. And that's a check-in to me saying, yeah, you have the freedom and you've built a life that you actually like living now, and you're not living for, 65 in your pension.
Yeah, I think that, I think I'm definitely envious of your journey. I think that that's something I would love to do. And I think that, just having the fortune now just to work from home, even though I do work
Mm-hmm.
all day, I think that I can resonate with you in the sense that it's easier for me now to be like, I'm going to, take my mom to go to the store during the day just because I want to spend some extra time with her, which is a
Yeah.
lot harder to do when you're working in an office and you're working on someone's clock. And I love that that's what you're saying, that even though you are working more now, you still have that flexibility to create that space for yourself to do what you want with your life and your time, and kind of create your day as you wish.
Yeah. And it comes with compromises too. Like I didn't when I started my business, and maybe one day, but I'm not earning that 6-figure salary that came with the law job. But for me, and this actually came up on someone on Instagram posted it, like you have to really define what your own vision of success is and what, rich means to you, or what success means to you, or what your definition of happiness is, because it could just be that you get to spend, pick your kids up from school every day, or it could mean that you get to buy your favorite purse or whatever. Like it changes for
Yeah.
everybody. And mine is very much that I get to be at my property and enjoy it and spend time with my partner and get to travel home. I need to see my family more for sure. COVID has made that difficult, but I was able to go home for 2 weeks in July and just spend time with my mom. And yeah, so those are all the things that make me realize I'm in a place where I'm supposed to be, because I get to have
Yeah.
control over that.
Yeah, yeah. I think that that's so true, that your definition of success is what you want it to be. And that's why it's so important to do that journaling like you've done, to
Mm-hmm.
connect with yourself, to figure out what is that thing that you define success as. For me personally, and why I started this brand and wanted to have this podcast and get onto the entrepreneurial journey, is that my definition of success is not the amount of money in my bank account,
Mm-hmm.
but it's the amount of time that I can have to myself, but also the amount of time that I can have with my daughter and with my
Mm-hmm.
husband. And to me, I just feel like of all the and I say this so much, but of all the commodities in the world, time is the only one that you can never get back. It's not one you can, work extra hours and then make an extra like couple $1,000 or
Yeah,
whatever. It's the only thing you can never get back. So once it's gone, it's gone. And
totally.
I had a guest, Sam, on the podcast a couple weeks ago, and he has like this hourglass on his desk with like little grains of salt. And so he looks at the little grains of salt throughout the day, and he's like, that little grain of salt is equivalent to 1 second of your day. And he always looks at it because it draws his inspiration. He draws his inspiration from it, thinking that, have I made the most of the last second? Because that grain of salt just fell and
Wow.
it's not coming back up. And he uses that to like get himself aligned and get himself in check. And when he told me that, I was like, that is exactly how I view time. And
Yeah, you don't get
like
it back.
yeah, and like you said, like having the time to spend time with your partner, and I feel like that's me, like having the time to not miss anything to do with my daughter, right? Not be like, oh, I have this meeting, so I can't make it to pick you up, or I
Yeah,
can't make it to your soccer game or whatever.
yeah,
For me, that was really important. So that's my definition of success. And when I get to the place where, I can say that I will be there no matter what for all of your events. And even if you're not feeling good and you just want to hang out and go for ice cream or something, that I will be
yeah,
available to do that with you.
yeah.
I think that's my definition of success. And I love that you tapped into that.
Yeah, and I think it's really easy to get caught up in what everybody's doing now, and seeing, oh, they're, my friend's buying this house, or on my favorite person I follow on Instagram just, goes on this many holidays pre-COVID. And, you have to always be checking in, because it's really easy to get caught up in all those things. But you
Yeah.
know, if you don't know what's going to work for you, you'll always be chasing the next thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, like, when you see other people doing things online, you have to just take it. Well, I always say that you have to just take it with a grain of salt that, everybody's unique. You're unique. You're not going to have, an identical business to them. You're not going to have the exact same trajectory in your business as them. And a lot of the behind the scenes and the rawness and the realness is not actually shared
No.
online. And I'm sure, with you being a lawyer and having two businesses and like from the outside, someone looking in and being like, wow, she's so successful. She's probably making a ton of money and has all the time in the world to go on this month-long trip. And she's, just living the best life that she can. And which you are, you're living the best version of your own life.
Yeah.
But nobody sees the hard work that you do behind the scenes.
Totally. And I mean, I think we're all getting much better at that about, we're constantly reminded like this is just the highlight reel on social media. And I mean, I don't share a lot about my personal life on social media, but I should be showing more of the like, I think remember when people were doing like the 9 favorite squares of on Instagram, like at the end of the year. And so it's like, these are my 9 most favorite likes. And it's like, I think one year I did like, these are my 9 favorite squares, but these are the 10 things that you didn't know that happened, like, oh, moved across the country and the cat shit 30 times on the way through the airport and didn't Instagram that, or, your heart breaking and you crying every time you have to say goodbye to your mom at the airport, or because you've moved across the country and made a hard decision like that. And so I think, we have to be very cognizant that people are generally sharing the high points and that we're all on the struggle. And in terms of comparing businesses, like where people are at, it's so easy to get caught up and, this person is doing this and, oh, I should have 3,000 people on my email list, or I should have this many shares, or, she just did a 10K month. Like, why aren't they there? And I forget who says it, but it's like, don't compare someone else's middle to your beginning. And I'm constantly reminding myself of that because it's very easy to get caught up in the comparison game.
Yeah, I love that. And I think like, the biggest person that I draw a lot of inspiration from for me is Jay Shetty. I think that what he's done is like incredible. And he's only had his podcast for a year and a half and it's so successful. But then I keep reminding myself that he, prior to being a podcaster, he spent a good chunk of his life being in social media marketing, and he kind of knows it in and out. He's done it for big companies and he knows everything about it. And so after he came back from being a monk, and or actually he did that before he became a monk, but when he came back, he continued that career for a period of time before he decided he wanted to move forward with sharing the message of the wisdom that he had learned. And I just feel that that's the piece that sometimes I feel like is missing, or that you may not see, is that he's an amazing, he's very talented at social media marketing, and it's because he had all that hard work that he put into learning it so well. Prior to being a monk, and then after as well. And so he's done such a good job in that, and his success is, like you said, is his middle. And it's, you can't compare your beginning to his middle or anybody's middle. And I think that's so true. I think that, I love that. I'm going to have to remember that and put that on my wall.
Well, Google who actually said it, because I'm not the creator of that, but and I think that's where it comes back. Like, you have to define your own version of what success is, and it doesn't have to be the huge pie in the sky like life purpose success. It can be like, why did you start the podcast? Like, maybe you don't have 3 million downloads yet, but maybe your reason was because you wanted to make connections and learn about entrepreneurial journey. Well, if you've interviewed 30 people, like, that's pretty successful because you connected with 30 people and you learned about their journeys. So it's just coming back, and again, that comparison game. Comparison is a thief of joy. That's my other favorite one.
Yeah. Yeah, well, the biggest thing I do, I mean, this is like, as much as this is like a brand, and I'm doing this as an entrepreneurial journey, at the forefront of it all is that this is just my what I feel like is my purpose in life, is to share these stories, to inspire, and it brings me a lot of passion. And I don't actually look at the stats of my podcast. I don't look at how many downloads it's been. I don't look at the views. I don't look at any of that, because I don't want to get caught up in that kind of world, or I don't want to get caught up in, just always aiming for more and more and more and more downloads. because I just feel like when once you start doing what you love and what brings you the most joy, I think
Mhm.
that's, for me personally, I'm like, that's good enough. I'm doing something
Yeah.
that I absolutely love that doesn't feel like work to me.
Mhm.
And if I'm impacting just a single person, I feel like, that's good enough for me. And I know
Totally.
you probably feel the exact same way in doing your work, that it just brings you so much joy to even do it.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And now like coming back to how I am where I'm supposed to be is just like, oh, I know like I had 3 client calls today and one of them was like, thank goodness for you because you just made life so much easier for me. I'm like, well, that's what I'm here for. Like, that's actually what I'm here for. So,
Yeah.
and it just feels really nice, not validated, I don't want to say, but it just feels really nice to be part of that puzzle and making life easier for somebody else. So,
Yeah, yeah, I think that's awesome. And so I love everything you've had to share, and I'm curious, like, if you could go back to talk to, and I ask this to a lot of my guests, but if you can go
mhm.
back to Jamie in first year law school, what would you say to her?
I'd say study harder for property because that exam is gonna blow your mind. Um, I don't know. I'm not really like a regrets person, so I don't have regrets. I think acting a little sooner, and I think I say that for like I think my only regrets in life are I didn't take action fast enough, and that comes back to like relationships sometimes, like staying in relationships too long, staying at jobs too long, and just be confident and know that you can figure it out. Um, my girlfriend and I used to have the saying like we're smart, like when you're making really dumb decisions about things, like we're smart girls, we'll figure it out. And I've
Yeah.
always kind of come back to that because um, sometimes we get really caught up in not knowing all the steps, and I'm happy that my journey has led me to where I am, but I would be interested if I had taken action on getting out of corporate law a little bit earlier, or yeah, not listening to voices. I didn't have too many people saying no to things, but don't get too caught up in what other people's opinions are of what you're doing because they're not the ones that have to live with your life. You're the only one. So yeah,
Yeah.
just take action a little faster along the way.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think it's always great advice because once you may feel challenged, or you may feel that this is so hard and you don't know where it's going to go. But now that you're on the other side, and just letting your younger self know that, you're going to figure it out. You're a smart
Yeah,
girl and you'll figure it out, like you said. I
yeah.
think that's amazing. And I love that. And, yeah, and so do you want to share a bit about where people can find you? I will link your website and your social media, and all of your accounts and your businesses on the show notes. So if you want to connect with Jamie, you can connect with her there. But do you want to talk a little bit about what you do and how people can contact you?
Sure. So, like we chatted about, Contracts Market is legal contract templates for Canadian entrepreneurs, and I've made industry-specific templates for graphic designers, coaches, consultants, virtual assistants, contractor agreements, website terms and conditions, everything you need to start your business off legally on the right foot. And those are drafted for Canadian entrepreneurs to use with clients all over the world. And then in BC, I'm a practicing lawyer with my sole practitioner with Wild Coast Law, and that's my law firm. So, yeah, and just helping entrepreneurs and startups on the legal journey.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's been an
Yeah.
inspirational story to hear your journey. And like you said, people think once you get into law school and you're a lawyer, that's it, you've made it. And like you said, there's a lot more check boxes along the way. And I think it's very brave of you and very courageous of you to pave a new path for yourself. That's not the traditional one. I think that's always the hardest thing to do, but it's always the most rewarding as well.
Thank you so much, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for listening to the end of that episode. I hope you're inspired by what Jamie had to share and everything that she's done. It's so inspirational. It's so courageous. And I love that has done that. And honestly, it makes the life of online entrepreneurs like myself and many other that I know that much easier, knowing that we have someone in our corner when it comes to our legal work and the legal kind of contracts that we need for some of the work that we do. But not only that, Jamie's inspiring story and who she is and what she's done and how she's created what she's created is such a drive and such a motivating drive for us, and gives us so much encouragement to continue to go to what we're doing. And so I hope that you feel inspired by that and you're ready to take action on your goals and in your life. And if you could let us know what you think of that episode by leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts and subscribing to us on YouTube, that would mean the world to us. But if you're inspired by somebody and you know someone you want to share, send me a message. You can also fill out our nomination form on our website, howdidyoulearntodothat.com, and hopefully we can get them onto the podcast. Okay, so with that, we'll see you guys next week. Bye.